If you've been stretching, icing, or resting your sciatica, and it's still not better, this video is for you. Not because we're going to offer you a quick fix. We're not, but because there are 3 specific reasons sciatica tends to come back, and most people, including many healthcare providers, aren't addressing all of them. If even one of these applies to your situation, it could explain why you're still dealing with this. Let's go through them carefully. Mistake number 1, treating the symptom, not the source. Treating the leg pain instead of the compressed nerve root. Here's something that trips a lot of people up. Sciatica is not a diagnosis, it's a symptom. The burning, shooting, or tingling sensation you feel running down your leg is your sciatic nerve sending a signal. But the nerve itself, in most cases, isn't the problem. The problem is what's happening where that nerve originates. In the lower lumbar spine. What we commonly see is people spending a great deal of time treating the leg, stretching the hamstring, applying ice to the calf, massaging the area where it hurts most. And while that might offer some temporary relief, it doesn't address the nerve root compression that's generating the signal in the first place. Think of it this way. If someone is standing on a garden hose and water isn't flowing through, you don't fix the problem at the end of the hose. You address the pressure at the source. The leg pain is the end of the hose. The lumbar spine is where the pressure is being applied. Until that source is identified and properly addressed, the symptoms are likely to return. That's not a pessimistic statement. It's simply how nerve root compression tends to behave when left without the right intervention. Mistake number 2, doing the wrong movement for your cause. Herniated disc versus stenosis require opposite movements. This one is perhaps the most consequential mistake, and it's surprisingly common. Even in clinical settings, not all sciatica is the same, and the movement that helps one type can actually make another type significantly worse. There are 2 of the most frequently seen causes of sciatic nerve irritation. The first is a herniated disc, where disc material pushes outward and presses on a nerve root. The second is spinal stenosis, where the spinal canal or nerve passageways narrow over time, typically due to age-related changes, reducing the space available for the nerve. Here's where the critical distinction lies. People with a herniated disc often find relief with extension-based movements, gently arching the back, pressing up onto the hands while lying face down. These movements tend to encourage the disc material to shift away from the nerve. For many people with this pattern, forward flexion, rounding the back, pulling the knees to the chest, can increase disc pressure and worsen symptoms. Spinal stenosis tends to work in the opposite direction. Flexion-based positions, sitting, bending slightly forward, even walking with a slight lean, often open up the spinal canal and reduce nerve compression. Extension can compress the already narrowed space further. So if someone with stenosis is following an exercise program designed for disc herniation, or vice versa, they may be working against their own recovery without realizing it. This is one of the more important reasons why a proper evaluation matters before beginning any exercise routine for sciatica. Mistake number 3, resting too much. Discs need movement to receive nutrients. Rest has its place in recovery, particularly in the early days following a flare-up. But prolonged rest, meaning days or weeks of significantly reduced movement, can actually slow the healing process for spinal conditions. And here's the physiological reason why. The intervertebral discs, the cushioning structures between your vertebrae, don't have a direct blood supply after early childhood. They receive their nutrients through a process called imbibition, which is essentially a pumping mechanism driven by movement and load. When you move, fluid and nutrients are drawn into the disc. When you remain still for extended periods, that exchange is reduced. What we commonly see is a cycle where someone experiences sciatica, rests to avoid pain. The disc becomes less nourished over time, recovery slows, and the pain persists, reinforcing the urge to rest further. It's a pattern that can be difficult to step out of without guidance. This doesn't mean pushing through sharp pain or returning immediately to high-intensity activity. It means that gentle, appropriate movement, the right kind for your specific condition, is generally more beneficial than complete rest. The challenge is identifying what appropriate looks like for your individual situation. What actually works, the right approach. There's a concept in physical therapy called directional preference. It refers to the idea that each person's spine tends to respond better to movement in one specific direction, and that finding that direction and working with it consistently tends to produce more meaningful and lasting relief than general exercise alone. One well-researched framework built around this concept is the McKenzie method. Without getting overly clinical about it, the approach involves a systematic assessment, asking you to perform a series of simple movements while a trained clinician observes how your symptoms respond. Do they decrease in one direction? Do they move closer to the spine and away from the leg? That response guides the entire treatment plan. What makes this approach worth understanding is that it doesn't apply a one-size-fits-all exercise program. It starts with your body's individual response and works from there. For some people, that means extension-based work. For others, flexion. For some, it's a combination that changes as they progress. It's not a guarantee of resolution. Nothing in medicine is. But it represents a more precise starting point than the general stretching routines that most people are handed without any assessment behind them. The goal isn't to find the perfect exercise. The goal is to find the right direction for your spine, and that requires understanding your specific cause first. If you're in Texas and you've been dealing with recurring sciatica, and you're not entirely sure what's causing it or whether what you're doing is helping, that's a reasonable place to want more clarity. What we do is start with a proper evaluation. We look at your movement patterns, your symptom behavior, and what your spine is telling us. From there, we build a plan that's specific to your cause, not a generic program pulled from a list. There's no pressure in coming in for an assessment. It's simply information. And in our experience, having the right information is usually where a meaningful recovery begins. We'll see you when you're ready.